Welcome to my channel. Old Valuable Coins. The Jefferson nickel series has been in production since 1938, and the 1962 nickel comes from the long-running early era before major design changes. The obverse features the left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, America's third president, designed by Felix Schlag. His portrait on the coin is instantly recognizable, showing strong classical features and a simple, distinguished profile. The inscriptions include the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," and of course the date 1962. Every detail of the 1962 nickel reflects the clean, mid-century style of American minting. The portrait has slightly softened lines compared to earlier years due to decades of die use and minor design adjustments, making the 1962 nickel look smooth and iconic at the same time. Turning to the reverse, you'll find the famous Monticello design, the historic estate of Jefferson. This building is one of the most recognized images in American numismatics. The reverse shows a straight-on view of Monticello with balanced, symmetrical architecture, along with the inscriptions E Pluribus Unum, Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America. Collectors often pay attention to the clarity of the steps on Monticello. These steps are a huge focus point because well-struck steps are harder to find on many nickels from this era, including 1962. Strong steps often indicate a bold strike, and that makes a coin more desirable. The 1962 Jefferson nickel was minted at two locations, Philadelphia and Denver. Philadelphia nickels from this year have no mint mark, while Denver coins carry the small D mark to the right of Monticello on the reverse. The Philadelphia mint produced hundreds of millions of these coins, and Denver struck an even larger quantity. With such high mintages, most 1962 nickels are common in lower grades. However, the story changes when you focus on coins with exceptional strikes, attractive details, or special errors. These are the pieces that truly set themselves apart from the crowd. Collectors enjoy 1962 nickels because they represent pre-1965 US coinage, meaning these nickels were produced before major composition changes affected other denominations. The Jefferson nickel has maintained its copper-nickel composition since 1946, but early 1960s coins still have a different feel and appearance than modern pieces. Many collectors notice a richer luster and deeper toning on older nickels. The 1962 nickel weighs 5 grams and is made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, which gives it that classic silver-gray color. Its diameter is 21.2 millimeters, a size unchanged since the very first Jefferson nickels were made. When examining a 1962 nickel, pay close attention to the sharpness of Jefferson's hair, the clarity of the lettering, the strength of Monticello's details, and of course the steps. Coins that show crisp steps, a clean portrait, and minimal surface marks stand out, especially when found in original rolls or circulated collections. Even though most 1962 nickels are common, there are still many chances to find sharp strikes that appeal to collectors who love quality early 1960s coins. One reason collectors love searching through old nickels is the possibility of finding valuable errors. The 1962 nickel has several known mint errors that can dramatically increase a coin's value. Some of the most interesting examples include off-center strikes where part of the design is missing or shifted to one side, creating a dramatic and collectible look. You might also find broad strikes where the rim is spread out, creating an unusually wide appearance. There are also die cracks, die breaks, and cut errors that show extra raised lines or blobs of metal where the die was damaged during minting. These kinds of errors make each coin unique and can attract strong interest among collectors. Another highly collectible variety is the double die. While major double dies are not common for 1962 nickels, minor doubling in the lettering or Monticello details can still appear. Any doubling that looks crisp and noticeable adds both interest and value. Coins with rotated dies, meaning the front and back are not properly aligned, also show up occasionally and make for fun discoveries. The key to identifying valuable 1962 nickel errors is simple: look for anything abnormal, misaligned, or unusual in the design. One of the biggest questions collectors ask is how much a 1962 nickel can be worth today. Most coins found in pocket change or loose collections carry modest value because of high mintages. However, coins with clean surfaces, strong details, and sharp steps can be significantly more desirable. Well-preserved nickels with attractive luster, clear lettering, and minimal wear are always in demand among collectors who prefer high-quality examples from early 60s coinage. Error coins can be especially valuable depending on the strength and visibility of the mistake. Finding a great 1962 nickel is about understanding what to look for. Collectors recommend checking the steps, observing the overall strike quality, and noticing whether the coin has natural, pleasing toning. Some older nickels develop beautiful blue, gold, or violet colors over many decades, and these naturally toned pieces are often more appealing. A coin with bright, original surfaces always attracts attention. The 1962 nickel also has a place in American history. It circulated during a period of major national change, right before the United States entered the mid-1960s era of shifting culture, politics, and economy. Every 1962 nickel was used by Americans in the early years of the space age, during Cold War tensions, and before the major design changes that affected many US coins later in the decade. That gives this simple 5-cent coin an added sense of connection to the past. Another reason the 1962 nickel remains important is its place in the Jefferson series. Collectors who build full date and mint collections need a 1962p and 1962d coin, and finding high-quality examples can still take time. Even though millions were made, the majority circulated heavily, so sharp, clean examples are always welcome. If you have a 1962 nickel at home, take a moment to examine it closely under good lighting. Look at Jefferson's cheek, jawline, and hair. Look at the fields around the portrait to see whether they are smooth or scratched. Flip the coin to the reverse and study the steps on Monticello and the clarity of the building. Any coin with strong steps or exceptional detail is worth keeping safely. If you enjoy coin roll hunting, searching through rolls of nickels can help you discover older dates like 1962, and sometimes even coins with great character or interesting errors. Collectors also love the 1962 nickel because it feels timeless. It represents American history, classic design, and decades of circulation. Every example tells a story of the people who used it, the era it came from, and the minting process that created it. Whether it's a common piece or an unusual error, the 1962 nickel holds a place in the long tradition of US 5-cent coins. As we explore this coin further, it's clear that the 1962 Jefferson nickel stands out for more than its age. It represents a period of craftsmanship, simple but meaningful design, and a connection to everyday American life. Collectors who appreciate coins with history and character continue to enjoy this date, especially when they find well-struck examples or surprising mint errors. Coin number 2, the 1964 Jefferson nickel, is part of the long-running Jefferson nickel series, first introduced in 1938. By the time 1964 arrived, the design was already iconic. On the obverse, it features the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. On the reverse, you'll find Monticello, Jefferson's historic home, along with the denomination and the mottos that define U.S. coinage. But 1964 was not a normal year for the mint. The United States was experiencing a nationwide coin shortage, a crisis that pushed the mint to produce unprecedented numbers of coins. As a result, 1,964 nickels were struck in enormous quantities, far higher than any previous year. Millions upon millions of nickels were produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, making 1964 one of the highest mintage years in the entire series. But that high mintage didn't stop collectors from getting excited about the coin. In fact, the huge production led to something interesting: a wide range of striking qualities, planchet issues, and die varieties. And this is where the real opportunities come for collectors today. Even though most 1964 nickels are common, a small percentage are highly valuable because of errors, varieties, or exceptional condition. So understanding how to spot these key traits is essential if you're trying to build your collection or find a rare coin worth significantly more than 5 cents. One of the most important things to know about the 1964 Jefferson nickel is the presence of full steps examples. Full steps refers to the staircase on Monticello on the reverse side. When the steps are fully visible and sharply struck, free from major marks or weakness, the coin can qualify as a full steps nickel. These FS coins are very difficult to find in high grade because most 1964 dies were heavily used. A 1964 Jefferson nickel with full steps can be worth far more than a typical circulated example. In higher mint state grades, especially MS65, MS66, or better with full steps designation, some pieces can sell for impressive amounts at auctions. Collectors are always searching for sharp, well-defined steps because they represent the top tier of strike quality. If you ever come across a 1964 nickel with crisp detail, strong luster, and full definition on Monticello, it may be worth getting evaluated. Another major area of interest is the 1964D Jefferson nickel produced at the Denver Mint. While both the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced massive numbers of nickels, the Denver issues often contain die varieties and striking differences. Some collectors specifically search for repunched mint marks on the 1964D nickel. RPMs, or repunched mint marks, occur when the mint mark was punched more than once into the die. These varieties can range from subtle to obvious, and the clearer the doubling, the more collectible the coin becomes. If you have a 1964 D nickel, take a close look under magnification at the D mint mark. You may find north, south, east, or west repunching that adds extra value. Alongside repunched mint marks, the 1964 Jefferson nickel also has doubled dies. Doubled die obverse and doubled die reverse varieties happen when the die itself was improperly hubbed, creating a doubling effect on the letters, the portrait, or parts of the reverse design. Doubled dies are some of the most desirable varieties in numismatics because they are part of the die itself, not post-mint damage. Even minor doubling can bring premiums, and strong doubling can bring in significant collector interest. For the 1964 nickel, doubling can appear on the motto "In God We Trust," on Liberty, on Jefferson's iron hair, or on Monticello and 5 cents on the reverse. If you want to increase your chances of finding a valuable coin, checking for doubled dies is one of the best strategies. Mint errors are another factor that gives the 1964 Jefferson nickel a high level of collector attention. Errors such as off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, die cuds, broad strikes, and even struck-through debris errors exist on 1964 nickels. Because the mint was producing such massive quantities under pressure during this period, mistakes happened more frequently. Each of these errors tells a unique story about how the coin was made, and many of them can significantly raise a coin's value. For example, a dramatic off-center error could be worth many times the coin's face value. A clear clipped planchet also attracts collectors who specialize in error coins. If you're checking your change or sorting through old rolls, don't ignore odd shapes, missing edges, misaligned strikes, or strange marks. They may be legitimate errors that make your coin valuable. Condition also plays a powerful role in the value of a 1964 nickel. Because these coins circulated heavily for decades, finding a clean, bright, high-grade example is not easy. Coins with heavy wear, scratches, discoloration, or damage will be worth face value. But a well-preserved, brilliantly lustrous coin with sharp details can be worth much more, especially if it has full steps or a recognized variety. Mint state grades from MS60 to MS67 represent the upper spectrum of condition. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. Collectors and grading companies evaluate luster, surface marks, strike quality, and overall eye appeal. So whenever you find a 1964 nickel in excellent condition, keep it safe until you can compare it with known grading standards. Even though the 1964 nickel is extremely common and millions still exist, the coin holds tremendous educational value for new collectors. It teaches how mintage numbers affect rarity, how to spot varieties, how to identify mint errors, and how to evaluate striking quality. This coin also marks the final year before the United States removed mint marks temporarily in an effort to discourage hoarding. So the 1964 coin represents a historical milestone in the series. It is widely searched online, frequently discussed in collecting communities, and continues to generate curiosity about what makes certain nickels rare or valuable. For metal composition, the 1964 Jefferson nickel is made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This alloy has been used for decades, giving the coin durability and a signature silver-colored appearance. The coin weighs 5 grams and has a diameter of 21.2 millimeters. These specifications are standard for most Jefferson nickels outside of the wartime silver-nickel period from 1942 to 1945. Understanding the metal makeup is useful because collectors often compare different eras, especially when seeking coins with silver content. The 1964 nickel does not contain silver, but it still remains highly collectible due to its varieties, errors, and historical context. Collectors also pay attention to the die state of 1964 nickels. During times of heavy production, dies wear quickly, which causes weak strikes, loss of detail, die deterioration doubling, and other distortions. While most die deterioration issues do not add value, they help explain why full steps coins are so rare and why sharply struck pieces stand out. If you examine a 1964 nickel with strong details, it likely came from an early die state, making it more desirable. On the other hand, coins struck from late-stage dies often show mushy details, which is common but less desirable. Coin number 3, the 1969 D Jefferson nickel, was struck at the Denver Mint during a period of major change in American circulating coinage. In 1969, the United States Mint was dealing with huge production demands following the coin shortages of the early 1960s. To keep up with circulation needs, The Denver Mint produced more than 202 million Jefferson nickels with the 1969 D mint mark. This large mintage makes the coin very common in circulation, but even a common coin can become highly interesting when you look closer at varieties, errors, condition levels, and collector demand. Even today, you can still find a 1969 D nickel in pocket change, but finding one in high grade or with valuable errors is where things get exciting. The Jefferson nickel design used in 1969 is the classic portrait created by sculptor Felix Schlag. On the obverse, you see the left-facing profile of Thomas Jefferson, with the inscription "In God We Trust" on the left, Liberty and the date on the right, and the mint mark D appearing to the right of the Monticello building on the reverse. The reverse of the coin displays Monticello, Jefferson's historic home in Virginia, along with the inscriptions E Pluribus Unum, United States of America, and 5 cents. This design remained basically unchanged for decades, making the 1969 D nickel feel both familiar and historically rich to collectors who love classic U.S. coins. The composition of the 1969 D nickel is standard for the Jefferson series at the time, 75% copper and 25% nickel. This durable alloy is what makes Jefferson nickels last so long in circulation. Many coins from the 1960s are still found today with minimal wear, showing just how strong this metal mixture is. The average weight is 5 grams and the diameter is 21.2 millimeters. There is no silver content, but the coin is still interesting because of the value added through condition, minting quality, and rare die errors. When collectors look for 1969 D Jefferson nickels worth money, the first thing they focus on is condition. Sharp, well-struck examples with full steps on the Monticello building are extremely desirable. Full steps, often shortened to FS, means that all the visible steps on Monticello's staircase are struck clearly without breaks, flattening, or marks. Because the Denver Mint sometimes struggled with strike quality during this era, full-step 1969 D nickels are scarce and command strong prices. Even a regular circulated 1969 D nickel might only be worth its face value, but a high-grade example, especially one graded mint state 65 or higher with full steps, can climb into the tens or even hundreds of dollars depending on eye appeal and rarity. Now let's talk about one of the most exciting parts of the 1969 D Jefferson nickel, errors and varieties. Errors are what make ordinary coins turn into valuable finds, and the 1969 D nickel features several collectible mint errors that are worth searching for in rolls, coin collections, or even in old jars of change. One notable error is the off-center strike, where part of the design shifts away from the center, leaving a portion of the coin blank. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable the coin can be. Another error that collectors love is the die crack or die break, which occurs when the die begins to fracture, leaving raised lines or blobs of extra metal. These can appear on Jefferson's portrait or around Monticello, and the size and location of the die break determine the value. Another category of collectible errors includes clipped planches, where a portion of the coin's edge is missing because the blank was punched incorrectly. These errors are visually striking and always popular among collectors. You may also encounter weak strikes, doubled letters, or other minor anomalies. While most minor errors don't make a coin extremely valuable, dramatic errors can transform a typical 5-cent piece into a rare collector's treasure. For collectors who study die varieties, the 1969 D is an interesting year. While not as famous as earlier double die years, collectors should still examine the date, lettering, and mint mark closely under magnification. Machine doubling and minor die deterioration doubling can occur, though these usually add only small premium value. Still, discovering any doubling is always exciting and keeps the hunt for valuable nickels alive. The value of a 1969 D Jefferson nickel depends heavily on condition. In circulated grades, most examples are worth 5 cents. In uncirculated grades, prices rise steadily. A bright, lustrous mint state 60 example may sell for a modest amount, while higher grades such as MS63, MS64, and MS65 begin attracting more serious collectors. The highest values come from coins with full steps designation, because these are extremely difficult to find for this year and mint. A top-graded 1969 DFS nickel can sell for significant money at auctions, sometimes hundreds of dollars depending on rarity and demand. This is why many collectors carefully inspect the steps of Monticello with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking for that full separation and clean strike. Collectors also appreciate the 1969 D nickel because it represents a stable period in American coinage. Without major design changes, the Jefferson nickel became a coin that almost everyone recognized instantly, and millions of Americans used it daily. This makes the 1969D nickel both historically relevant and nostalgically important. Holding one in your hand connects you to a time of cultural change, technological progress, and significant events happening across the United States. Searching for valuable 1969D nickel coins is also popular because Jefferson nickel rolls remain inexpensive and widely available. Many collectors enjoy coin roll hunting because it's affordable and offers the thrill of potentially finding valuable errors, full-step examples, or unusually well-preserved nickels. Even if you don't find a high-value coin, the hobby itself remains fun and rewarding. People often overlook nickels when hunting for treasure, but Jefferson nickels, especially from the 1960s and 1970s, hide many surprises. Another reason the 1969D nickel draws interest is its place within the broader Jefferson nickel series. Collectors assembling year-by-year collections want clean examples from every year and mint. A high-quality 1969D helps complete that set. Some collectors also build full Jefferson nickel sets with optional features like full steps or proofs, and even though 1969 has no proof nickels because proofs were made only in San Francisco, the Denver Mint business strike still plays an essential role in completing the series. When studying your own 1969D nickel, examine the coin under good lighting. Look at Jefferson's cheek, jawline, and hair for wear. Look at the steps on the Monticello building for clarity. Check the rims for clips or defects. Turn the coin slowly to examine the luster, as cartwheel shine is a sign of originality. Look for cracks, doubling, or blemishes. Every detail matters when identifying a valuable nickel.